to shout for peace and to ask for a ceasefire. And we have politicians, we have a majority of politicians in our parliament who do not support a ceasefire. They're kind of now coming around a little bit, but they're not fully supporting it. They still haven't done so unconditionally. And that is what we have. This is our parliament in the UK. I'm asking everybody now, are you comfortable with that?
No.
Are you comfortable that we have MPs that actually say it's fine what happens? And the question, of course, is, if we have an MP, like Alex Norris, for example, Nottingham Labour Party, or Lillian Greenwood, Nottingham Labour Party, who did not support calls for a ceasefire, who are fine with this massacre, I'm asking all the people that kind of pass by, are these the politicians that you want for Nottingham? Do you really trust them? That they will, if they don't give a flying fart about other people's lives, do you really trust them that they suddenly would kind of would stand up for your interest? I don't. And I don't think we should vote for them anymore. It doesn't matter what they promise us at the next election. What we have to remember is they could not be asked to vote for a ceasefire. They were fine with this massacre. And this is really unforgivable. The idea that we have politicians that do not stand up for life is as bad as it can get. And a lot of that, of course, has to do with Barclays and with Capital and with Pret and with kind of all other companies. And this is how the world is governed. There is not much. There are not that many MPs anymore that dare to speak out for a simple human cause, which is actually not that hard. Hey, let's stop the killing. It's not radical, is it?
No.
But it seems to be radical because we who ask that the killing should be stopped, we are the extremists.
Shame.
You genocidal fucks. This is really not okay anymore. And this is what we have to kind of, we have to be aware how much our democracy is affected by what's going on in Palestine at the moment. And it's not good news. I want to know, if you are an MP, and let's say you have kids, how could you actually really do that? How could you not vote for a ceasefire knowing that kids in another place are being killed? How is that even possible?
Shame.
Oh yeah, I know how it's possible. It's because there is something called the party line. So if Keir Starmer says, we don't support ceasefire, then that's what we do as MPs. And this is an extremely, extremely sad idea of democracy. But this is where we are. And if we want to change this, then we have to take action at the next election.
Yes.
At the local, at the regional, but especially, I think, at the next national election. That's when it matters. We will not vote for people that supported this massacre. Free, free Palestine.
Free! Free Palestine!
Of a genocide in front of our eyes. And the only country to get real condemnation is Iran, who did not kill any person. I'm not a supporter of their regime. Let me put that first. I am the last person to be supporting their regime. But I understand that if you want to support human rights, you can't stand in solidarity with Israel and say you're for women's rights in Iran, but you don't care about the women's rights in Palestine. It doesn't go like that. You have to stand for women's rights, human rights across the whole world. You don't get to choose which human rights apply. And that's what we've seen. Because in Iran, what started as a grassroots uprising against a fascist authoritarian police system in Iran was unfortunately hijacked by a lot of Western media and Western countries like Israel to say they stand with women, but at the same time they deny women their inherent right to health care, their inherent right to not be imprisoned, to have some dignity. And they want to talk about sanctions and how we need more sanctions on Iran. These sanctions on Iran have denied basic health care in Iran. Women not being able to get basic needs, or cancer patients missing out on chemotherapy, radiotherapy. And it's devastating. They think these sanctions are actually going to change something. They tried it on Russia, but they went around that. They're still in Ukraine. They've tried it in Iran, but their people, it's mainly the people of these countries who get harmed, not the regimes at the top. But it will be different for Israel, because Israel is supported by Western powers and it functions through an evil system called capitalism, and that's what it is. Israel hasn't existed for thousands of centuries, unlike Iran. I mean, who do they think they are? Israel wants to lecture them about being the only democracy and all of this, and Iran, I would say, is not a real democracy, but neither is Israel. Israel is not at all a democracy. Even you have Benjamin Netanyahu, who has thousands of corruption charges, or should be, and he should be underneath the Hague by this point. And it's not just his government. You see, in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, they all unite to destroy Gaza, to destroy and occupy the West Bank. So how can you call this a democracy when there's no real opposition to a genocide in Israel? I would say just the message is that you can't vote your way out of a genocide. I know we have the elections coming up on the 2nd of May. Personally, I'll be voting for Frank Adlington for the Green Party. Labour will never, ever, ever get my vote. Ever.
Shame on Labour!
The Labour government have been infiltrated by right-wing extremists. The front bench are right-wing extremists. Just look at Wes Streeting and his obsession with privatization of the NHS. Wes Streeting is hell-bent on making us all sicker and poorer. Keir Starmer couldn't give two craps about a real solution to climate change. And he's constantly said that Israel has a right to cut off water, food and electricity to Gaza. This was during October. Now, do we want to vote for a party that endorses genocide?
No!
A party that does not even want to condemn Israeli war crimes.
Shame!
And these people aren't even bought by that much money. You see their donations coming in from Israel, such as the Labour Friends of Israel. They spend thousands of pounds. It's a lot of money for myself, but in the grand scheme of things for politicians, it's not that much to buy out their souls for an illegitimate genocidal state.
Shame on them! Shame!
So while we can't vote out of a genocide, I would urge everyone to really think about if you want a Labour government in power. Really think about this narrative, oh, we can push them to the left. No, you cannot push the Labour Party to the left. They are kicking out the most progressive members of Parliament in the Labour Party. They have demonized Diane Abbott. They've demonized Jeremy Corbyn. They've demonized Zara Sultana, Nadia Whittam. I love those people, but we can't just sit here and wait for them to do everything. You know, we can't rely on the Labour Party. We may have been able to beforehand, but ever since New Labour came in, they shift this whole country to be more right-wing. And now we can't sit here and accept a crumbling NHS, no social services, kids going hungry, and at the same time arming and being complicit in a genocide. We cannot have both. There needs to be a real sense of being political in a growing political world. We cannot afford to be apathetic or apolitical in a time where our world is most fragile, whether it's from genocides in Gaza, absolute catastrophes in Yemen and Sudan, or in Syria. All of these disasters and man-made disasters make us all sicker and poorer, which is why we need to stand up and actually think with our conscience. Thank you.
Excellent.
And those policies are on our website. Anybody, if you just Google Green Party policy, Palestine, our policies will come up. We've also had a policy of divestment, boycotting and sanctions for a very long time, and a policy of not supplying arms to Israel. We have committed to these. We also called for a ceasefire from the 9th of October and have consistently held that position ever since. But there are things that in the history of British foreign policy, or British policy in general, that we look back on today with shame and wonder how we ever came to support such activities. Slavery is one of them. Our support for apartheid in South Africa is another one. And I think that we will look back on this period in our history in 50 years' time, or even less, with absolute shock and horror that we as a country could have supported the actions of Israel, the Israeli state and the IDF the way we are supporting them as a country today. And you have to ask, why is it that Britain and the USA and many other countries have such a deep and unwavering commitment to Israel? And my personal opinion is that it is all to do with maintaining the economic interests of the West in the Middle East. And if you look at the history of British policy in the Middle East, I'm not a great expert on it, but if you look at, for example, the way we behaved in Iran right back in the 50s and 60s, when there was a democratically elected, reasonably progressive government in Iran, and the CIA from the USA and Britain conspired successfully to overthrow that government and reinstate the Shah. Why did we do that? Because that democratically elected government was threatening to nationalise the oil in Iran, and BP, British Petroleum, had big economic interests in Iran that they wanted to protect. And why did Britain go into Iraq? The only reason I can really think of is that Britain and the USA wanted to make sure that all the governments in the Middle East were friendly to the USA and Britain and our economic interests. And Israel is like a footprint of the West in the Middle East. And that, I think, is the root cause of why we give such unwavering support. It helps to maintain the control, the economic control of the West over the Middle East. And one of those little signs of that is the Eurovision Song Contest. Why is Israel participating in the Eurovision Song Contest? It's not a European country. Jordan isn't participating in the Eurovision Song Contest, nor is Lebanon, nor is Egypt or any other Middle Eastern country. But Israel is seen by Europe as a little outpost of Europe in the Middle East, and that's there protecting our economic interests. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? We're closing in about 10 minutes, so if anybody wants to say anything, or I can do another quick poem, and then we'll kind of finish off. Nobody? Okay, it's a poem then. Those who came
there and go, oh my goodness, apartheid is wrong. No. In fact, if you look to history, the UK, America, and Israel were the three countries that were actively arguing for sanctions to not be placed on apartheid South Africa. Shame! Those were the three countries that were encouraging the continuation of apartheid rule. And now we can see history repeating itself today. Now we can see the same three colonial entities, the same three countries built on the back of slavery, genocide, mass murder. We can see those same countries uniting together to try and continue the oppression of the Palestinian people. But we can also see people across the world uniting to say enough is enough. And we do not stand with genocide, we do not stand with Israel. We stand with Palestine and the oppressed across the globe. I know it might not seem like it in Nottingham right now because there's a small crowd and all of you are walking past, but I'm telling you, the rest of the world is waking up and they are moving so much faster than we are here. And if you want this country to stay so-called Great Britain, I suggest you wake up too so you don't get left behind. Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free! Free Palestine!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Pret, you can't hide!
Pret, you can't hide!
You're supporting genocide!
You're supporting genocide!
Pret, you can't hide!
Pret, you can't hide!
You're supporting genocide!
You're supporting genocide!
Barclays, you can't hide!
Barclays, you can't hide!
You're supporting genocide!
You're supporting genocide!
Barclays, you can't hide!
Barclays, you can't hide!
You're supporting genocide!
You're supporting genocide!
Barclays Bank foots the bill!
Barclays Bank foots the bill!
Israel uses drones to kill!
Israel uses drones to kill!
Barclays Bank foots the bill!
Barclays Bank foots the bill!
Israel uses drones to kill!
Israel uses drones to kill!
From Nottingham to Palestine!
From Nottingham to Palestine!
Occupation is a crime!
Occupation is a crime!
From Nottingham to Palestine!
From Nottingham to Palestine!
Occupation is a crime!
Occupation is a crime!
From Nottingham to the Middle East!
From Nottingham to the Middle East!
Stop the UK war machine!
Stop the UK war machine!
From Nottingham to the Middle East!
From Nottingham to the Middle East!
Stop the UK war machine!
Stop the UK war machine!
Before I hand the mic over, I just want to talk to every single person sitting outside Pret today. I'm not sure if you heard us, but Pret is currently supporting the illegal occupation of Palestine and the genocide that's being committed against the innocent Palestinian people, the Zionist entity in Palestine, whatever you want to call it. And owns shares worth over £1.3 billion in these arms companies that provide equipment being used to commit ongoing genocide. Barclays is actively arming, supporting and profiting from Israeli apartheid and the genocidal violence they have been committing against the Palestinian people over the last 6 months and over the past 76 years. Now they also provide over £4 billion, I'm going to say that again, £4 billion worth of loans and other financial services to these armed companies. Let's talk Elbit Systems. Elbit Systems being a factory that's just in Leicester, not a stone throws away. Israel's largest private arms company, which supplies 85% of the drones used by Israeli military. A huge percentage, 85% of the drones are provided by Elbit Systems, and they also produce arms and weaponry that is illegal under international law. Cluster munitions that target civilians indiscriminately, funded by Barclays Bank. So if you have a bank account with them, if you've got a mortgage with them, that's where your money is going. And we are calling to everyone to close their bank accounts on May 9th. Close it collectively and let Barclays know exactly why you are closing it. Because you do not support genocide. Because you do not support the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And if you think, look at this crazy terrorist shouting in the streets, I urge you to actually hear what I'm saying. I'm not calling for violence, I'm calling for peace and justice for all people in the land of Palestine, from the river to the sea. That includes Muslim people, Christian people, and Jewish people, who are all Palestinian, and who are all being hurt by the settler colony of Israel. For those of you walking past, for those of you who can hear my voice, I really urge you to think, are you going to be proud of how you have acted when you look back on your actions today? When South Africa was under apartheid rule, people came out and boycotted, made divestments, governments placed sanctions on them. But they didn't just do that out
The
of their
military weapons equipment includes drones, missiles, tanks and bombs, currently being used by the Israeli occupation forces to mass murder Palestinians. To date, Barclays have invested over £1 billion and provided over £3 billion in loans for underwriting to weapon manufacturers. This is a massive amount of money.
Shame! Shame! Shame on Barclays!
Shame on Barclays. In February of this year, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, found it plausible that Israel's ongoing attack on Palestine amounts to genocide. The ICJ issued 6 measures to prevent genocide. None of these measures have been complied with by Israel.
Shame! Shame!
One of the measures was to stop bombing. But to date, over 34,000 Palestinians have been murdered in this genocide, including over 13,000 children and babies. Over 13,000 people are missing. Many of these are presumed dead and buried under the rubble. And Barclays is bankrolling this mass murder.
Shame on Barclays!
Shame on Barclays!
Some of you may be aware, this is not the first time Barclays has been on the wrong side of history. During the South African apartheid era, Barclays profited from lending money to the apartheid regime so they could circumvent the international oil embargo. Barclays was aptly named then Barclays, the Bank of Apartheid. Once again, Barclays is on the wrong side of history, investing in weapon companies that commit mass murder. Since the start of 2004, the BDS Boycott, Divestment, Sanction campaign have encouraged over 2,500 Barclays customers to close their accounts. This clearly shows we can educate people and hurt Barclays where it hurts. So go out today, speak to people, let them know Barclays makes profits off Palestinian and other oppressed people's blood. Barclays Bank, shame on you!
Barclays Bank, shame on you!
So there's a third mass closure date planned on the 9th of May, as my sister said. So if you have an account with Barclays, or if you know anyone who has an account with Barclays, make them aware this is happening, and encourage them to take action, not to be complicit in these crimes. So to our fellow citizens,
USA!
Stop supporting Israel.
Stop supporting Israel!
UK, Europe, USA.
UK, Europe, USA.
Stop supporting Israel.
Stop supporting Israel.
UK, Europe, USA.
UK, Europe, USA.
Stop supporting Israel.
Stop supporting Israel.